What's up everybody, Brian Wagner, lead content creator for Dragzine. I'm out here in the glorious Dragzine East Coast shop, checking out some stuff, playing with a new little tool that I got, a 3D scanner. Now, you might be wondering, what can I use a 3D scanner for in a shop? Well, let me tell you what, these things have a lot of possibilities. If you're doing a lot of high-end work, a lot of custom work, you need to build stuff that there's no real parts available for it. A 3D scanner can actually make it a lot easier. And the cool thing is, these have gone down in price significantly now, where a prosumer one like the one I'm going to show you, the Creality Raptor, now costs significantly less than what it would just a couple years ago, and it puts out a product that's nearly as good as what you would see at a higher level back then now too. So you're getting a really good product in some of these newer prosumer level scanners. Now, $1,000 or so for what you could use it for, it's a solid product versus some of these higher end ones that companies use to create products and tools that cost tens of thousands of dollars. It's a great thing. So let's first talk about how this things work. Well, these 3D scanners essentially shoot freaking laser beams out to scan whatever you're looking at, kind of paint like almost like a radar picture, if you want to think of it that way. And then you have these little reflector jobbies that you put on the around the object, or these reflector dots on there, so it can kind of find and see what it's doing. That's a real high level explanation of it. So basically, it's just creating, you know, a scan of what you're looking at here, and then you can take that scan, chop it up if you will, mesh it together, make a couple different scans to create the entire object that you're trying to scan. So then you can import that into like a CAD software, Fusion, Tinkercad, whatever you got, to then either make something with a CNC machine or a 3D printer. So that's a lot of words. What does it mean? Well, here's a great real world example. For Project Swedish Meatball, ICT Billet was helping us set up the accessory drives that we wanted to use. So they actually took one of their modeled LS engines, and we're going to use that to create the accessory drive that we were looking for in the software. Well, the problem is they didn't have a Volvo 940 to kind of base it on. So they actually took their 3D scanner, went to a junkyard, found a Volvo 940, scanned the entire engine bay of it to essentially create that environment so they could place their pre-scanned LS in there, place the accessories on there, and know exactly where everything was going to be to confirm it would fit with what we need. That's one use. Another use is if you needed to create a specific bracket for something or some other fixture inside a vehicle, where you could use the scanner to essentially scan what you're looking at and then create what you want to create in CAD, make sure it's going to fit based on those measurements and what you're looking at, and then you can send that to a place to have it made if you need, without having to worry about, you know, going through multiple prototypes. Another example is what we're going to be doing today. So I have this really super cool high-end Harbor Freight wrench that I made, see, only the best around here, to put trans-cooler lines on and off, oh, you can't see them behind me there, 4th Gen F bodies, because it's kind of tight underneath there. So I took my finest Harbor Freight wrench, chopped it up, it works. But it could be a little bit better. How can we do that? Well, we're going to use a 3D scanner. I'm going to kind of show you this process. It's really how it does it, where I could scan this wrench. I have essentially the dimensions for it. I can put it into Fusion, you know, chop down the handle of the wrench and make it a little bit lower profile so I get more swing inside of there, change it however I need. That's the cool thing about this. So let's take and flip ye old camera around. All right, so get set up here. Got our scanner software already set up. There we go. And then we have our wrench and the scanner. All right, so check this out. Essentially, you just kind of take the scanner, you start the scan, you go back and forth, kind of like this, so you're capturing all the areas of what you're trying to scan here. So it's essentially taking this and then transporting it into the software here. So what's happening as you do this is you'll notice that the software has kind of like the optimal distance here, the little green bar, on what it's trying to look at. So let's start doing a little bit of a scan here. So as we go, you can see the wrench slowly start to appear there as we scan. And you go through and make all of these passes on this, essentially multiple times, to get this as much as you can. You gotta kind of, again, it's like playing a video game, keep it in range, so it captures all of these angles, and it's a little bit of a game. There we go. So go through, get this side more and more. You can just see it building that wrench out inside the software. And you'll have problems with it. It's, you know, it's really a learning process to go through and do it. So let's get back here. All right, cool. So we have, we'll say we finished our scan. Yes. So it goes through and processes everything. So you hit the little button here, one-click process. Runs through this whole deal, and it will create the essential, like, kind of like original, you know, form of this. Now, you know, if you're really doing this for real, take your time to really go through and get this thing to make sure it's scanned up as much as possible and get it as complete as possible. Then you'll go through, clean it up, flip it over, and then you take another scan of the opposite side. See it? Let's wait till it finishes up here. You'll scan the other side, and then what you do is you mesh them together, so you have an entire, for lack of better terms, you know, full scan of it. You see, like I said, it just kind of really rushed through it there. You know, there's some holes. We'd have to go through and, you know, do another scan to get all that in there. But you get the idea. Essentially, you create this entire wrench in here. It's wild. You create that, you'll clean it up, scan the other side, and you'll have a completely generated 3D object. So, to me, that opens up a lot of doors for, you know, your typical DIY person. Home shops could really use a 3D scanner like this, because how many times, you know, if you're working on a big project where there's, you know, you're making a bracket for something, or a plate. I've seen people have problems making, you know, motor plates or other adapters. You know, you got to make it out of cardboard, do it 110 times, and it turns into a whole hassle. Whereas with something like this, you could essentially scan what you need, create the template, and then have it made out of nice CNC or something like that right off the bat, 3D print it for testing. So there's a lot of uses for this in our industry. So looking forward to play this a little bit more. Make sure you check out the article on this on dragzine.com. If you want to learn a lot more about 3D scanners, check out Creality and their Raptor series. They really go into a lot of detail on their website and on their YouTube about what these scanners are possible for. So it's just another cool tool you can play with in the shop.